Okay, section 7.2 is a discussion of properties that we're allowed to perform uh, on all exponents, not just on rational exponents. What's different about the sheet that you see in front of you here is that with these, um, each one of these properties, they've chosen an example that shows how the rational exponent part of it can be used. Okay, so as I'm going to run through because I want you to note what the property allows you to do, and this is another good opportunity where you can probably freeze the video and copy these properties down, and even maybe copy the examples down so that when you see other problems like this in the homework, you'll know you can look back on and be able to apply the properties correctly. The first one, property number one up there, is called the product rule. And we know that if you take the product, which is the multiplication of two terms with the same base, you can combine them by keeping the base the same, but adding the exponents. So a to the m times a to the n is a to the m plus n. And they've used the example using base 5. The first exponent is 1/2. The second exponent is 3/2. Okay, note that within that example, they both already have common denominators. Okay, to add rational exponents, to add rational terms of any kind, adding and subtracting requires that you have a common denominator. So in this case, this becomes 5 to the 1/2 plus 3/2 power, which is 5 squared, which is 25. Second property is called the power rule. The power rule says if you have a base that's raised to a power and that is also raised to a power, then you can combine the two powers by multiplying them to simplify the expression. So 3 to the 5/2 quantity squared, when you multiply the exponents there, the 2's cancel out. So you're left with 3 to the 5th, which is 243. Number 3 is an extension of the product rule. Okay, what we have are two items inside, and it's a product of A and B, two bases, with one single exponent. You are allowed to distribute that exponent over everything inside the expression, everything inside the quantity. Now, they don't have to both be variables. You might have a variable, you might have a coefficient, but we still are going to distribute it through. The example that they've chosen, both bases are numbers. So when they distribute it through, they got 16 to the 1/2 power times 9 to the 1/2 power. And remember, the 1/2 power means the same as the square root. So the square root of 16 is 4, the square root of 9 is 3, and 4 times 3 is 12. On number 4, here the examples start to include negative exponents. And we talked about that in section 1. You're going to see more of that here in section 2. You're going to see a lot of repetition on this worksheet for section 2. Remember that when you have a negative exponent, you can make the exponent positive by taking the reciprocal. So a to the negative m becomes 1 over a to the positive m power. Okay, so 36 to the negative 1/2 power equals 1 over 36 to the excuse me, equals 1 over 36 to the 1/2 power, which is just 1 over 6. Property number 5 is called the quotient rule. And the quotient rule, if multiplication, the product rule says multiplying allows you to add. Quotient rule is just the other side of that. We can take the quotient rule and combine similar bases by subtracting the two exponents. So a to the m over a to the m n, equals a to the m minus n. So look at the two, in the example, you have two terms, base 4. you have a numerator of 5/2 as your exponent. The denominator has an exponent of 1/2. So subtracting those exponents, 5 minus 1, you get 4/2, which is 2. So 4 to the second power becomes 16. And then lastly is a combination of a product rule and a quotient rule. On number 3, we were allowed to distribute over a product. Number 6 says you can also distribute an exponent over a quotient, over a fraction. So both the numerator and denominator get the new exponent. So using the example, if I have 27 over 64 to the 1/3 power, that's the same thing as taking 27 to the 1/3 power and over 64 to the 1/3 power. Remember, 1/3 power means you're taking the cube root. So the cube root of 27 is 3. The cube root of 64 is 4. Okay, so like I said, in the homework, you're going to see a lot of repetition from the previous section of material, but we're also going to see some of the multiple items like properties 2, 3, 6. Some of those are going to come into play in these exercises. Okay. I just wanted to make a couple comments here, and then we'll go to the homework on the next video. The section 1, hopefully you'll be ready to turn it in on the drop-off on this Friday. Please be aware that in your folders on the crates that are given, you have a folder with your name on it. Those are for pickup materials only. There is a different table that has a box on it that says Mr. B's drop-off. Okay, so that's where you want to drop off the completed materials. Okay, the folders is where you'll pick up new materials. Okay, so you should already have all of your materials for this class, so you shouldn't need to be picking up anything else. Okay, for Algebra 2. I'll kind of give you through a list here. And if you're missing anything, I'm afraid some of you guys might be missing a paper. If you're missing anything, then you can email me and I can get it to you. Okay. So next worksheet will be the homework. Okay.